Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Penny and I'm the owner of 1 Cent Crochet. Today I'm going to be talking to you about how to design your own crochet patterns. So this video is going to be sort of specifically talking about crochet plushies rather than crochet clothing, but you can also use the information from this video to design patterns for things other than plushies. Before we get into this video, make sure to hit subscribe and like this video if you want to see more content like this. I just realized after recording that I didn't actually tell you guys if I have any credibility in this area, so I can assure you that I do. I have created 45 patterns in total, 41 paid patterns and 4 free patterns, all of amigurumi, so don't worry. So before you are at the level where you can design your own crochet patterns, here are a few things that I would recommend you do. First of all, you must know how to read patterns. So this is kind of a given, but you need to know what a single crochet means, what an increase and decrease means, what a round means. So to learn how to do this, I started off watching YouTube tutorials where I got the idea of how to read crochet patterns. Then I bought a few crochet patterns, and also what I would recommend is testing other people's patterns. So if you head over to Instagram, then you can apply it to test someone else's pattern. So after you've done this, you're probably gonna have a good idea of what increasing and decreasing does in a pattern. You know, how does increasing make a pattern look? If I do 6 increases in this round, what's it gonna do to the shape of the head of the plushie that I'm making? You need to have a good idea of all of this before you start designing crochet patterns. Once you are confident in your crocheting abilities, it's time to move on to the next level. So I want to show you guys the first pattern that I ever designed. So I would recommend starting with something really simple, and that's what I did. So here's my first pattern. It's this little octopus. This pattern is actually still available on my Etsy a year and a bit later. It was a relatively simple pattern to make. The only difficult thing was doing front loops only with these little tentacles here and a couple of chains and half double crochets and all that. But overall, it's not a big pattern, so do not start with a really big pattern. You want to start with something small so that you don't get discouraged and so it's not too hard the first time. So here is the process that I would recommend to go through when designing patterns. First of all, you want to have an idea of what you're going to make. Some people really like drawing out what their plushie is going to look like before they've started crocheting. Generally, I don't do that. I just have a really good idea in my head of what it's going to look like. Obviously, once you become more advanced, I can sort of just start crocheting and then I'll build it as I go, and I'm not too worried about how it looks like beforehand. But some people like to plan out their patterns really thoroughly, exactly how it's going to look like beforehand. And that's actually what I would recommend doing your first time. Second of all, you need to take note of what materials you are using. Are you using a 5mm crochet hook? What sort of yarn are you using? What millimeter safety eyes are you using? Write down everything that you use to make the plushie, because this will be included in the second page of the pattern, hopefully with the materials and with the abbreviations, but I'll get into that later on. Next up, do not be afraid to unravel everything or to frog, as people like to say. It is okay to frog your entire pattern if you don't like how something looks, because if you don't, then it will bug you for the rest of your life. And okay, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but I promise you it will bug you. And if you do a round and you're like, oh, I just didn't do the right amount of increases, it just like, but I don't want to go back and undo it. You should definitely go back and undo it, okay? Don't be afraid. You're not wasting your time if you undo something that you've already done. That's what I always hate. When I undo or frog something, I always feel like I'm wasting my time. But I promise you that you are not, because it will be worth it when you turn out a pattern that is perfect and exactly as you imagined. So my next tip is make sure to write what you were doing as you were doing it. So if I do a round of single crochet increase times 6, and immediately, like before I do it or immediately after I finish that round, I write it down in my note-taking app that I have. Some people like to use a notebook to take notes, but I find it's just quicker to type it up. I'm more of a digital person. Take note of absolutely everything. This will make it so much easier when you are actually writing the pattern that you didn't miss anything out. Another thing to make sure to do is to take photos as you are making the pattern. So if you get up to a complicated bit in the pattern and you're like, oh, I feel like the people who are reading this pattern are going to want to have a photo of how to do this, then make sure to take those photos as you are making the pattern. Otherwise, if you want to make the pattern twice or the plushie twice, like to make sure that the pattern is perfect, then you can take photos the second time round too. Once you've completed the plushie, also make sure to take final photos of the plushie. You know, you might want to go outside, that's where I take all my photos for patterns, or you might want to use a light box or something like that. Just make sure they are professional looking photos, because that is what people will be seeing when they go to purchase your pattern, or if it's a free pattern, when they go to look at your pattern. Now, what program do you write patterns in? So, I personally use Word. I know a lot of people use Canva, which is great. Canva is a free website and you can make things look really, really aesthetic with Canva. I just like to use Word because I can have all my fonts that I want, and it's just an easier process to sort of duplicate the same Word document so all my patterns have the same layout. But yeah, you can pretty much use any program that you like. So here is what you will need inside your pattern. So you will want a title page with a photo of the plushie, with maybe something saying, "Thank you for purchasing my pattern." Then on the second page, I always do my materials list, which was what I was talking about earlier. My abbreviations, so SC equals single crochet, and also my general notes for the pattern. So is it going to be US terminology or UK terminology? That's a really important one. I'm Australian, but I use US terminology for my patterns since it's way more popular to do that when it comes to Etsy. But if you live in the UK and you're used to using UK terminology, you're gonna need to specify that you're using UK terminology. Now finally, pricing. So my patterns are anywhere from $3 USD to $6 USD. In Australian dollars, that's about anywhere from $4.50 to $9. Sometimes I see people selling, you know, plushie patterns for $20, and I think, really? Like, you need to price your patterns in a way that are competitive, but also don't make it too cheap. You need to make some money from it if you're planning for it to be a paid pattern. But when you start out, around $3 is probably the right amount. Also, there are multiple places that you can sell patterns. I sell them on Etsy mostly, and also Ribbler. A lot of people I know sell them on Ravelry, or they can also sell them on a website of their own. I find that although Etsy has some high fees, I get about 50% of my customers straight through Etsy, so it's actually really beneficial overall. So yeah, I would definitely recommend Etsy if you are starting out selling patterns and you don't have like a massive social media following or anything that you can redirect to a website. But most of all, make sure to have fun, be creative, and challenge yourself. You're never going to get better if you don't start making more difficult patterns. But also, designing patterns is not for everyone. I know a lot of crocheters that like testing other people's patterns and only using patterns that can be already found online. And that's completely fine too. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe if you did. I'll be coming out with lots of new videos soon. And comment below if you have any suggestions for a YouTube video that you want me to make. See you in the next video.